Welcome everybody to Linux Academy. My name is Terry, and over this course we will be covering all things Linux, introduction to installation and setup. Alright, so finally we're going to take a look at how do you run Windows applications on your Linux desktop. Well, the short answer is you can, kind of. There's a project called Wine, and Wine stands for, strangely enough, Wine is not an emulator. It contains itself in its own name. Wine is an attempt by the community to re-implement all of the APIs and DLLs and libraries that Windows applications rely on to run at an operating system level. So it's a complete rewrite from scratch of all of the system libraries that Windows applications use. Now, by no means is it complete. In fact, getting Wine applications to run is largely hit and miss. You pretty much have to try a Windows application to see if it'll work. The more bleeding edge the application, the less likely it is to run correctly, because Windows applications and their DLLs that are distributed and the underlying libraries and registry settings are constantly changing, particularly for Windows 8, less so for Windows 7 now that it's out of official distribution and is being used and supported but is not in distribution. The less likely that your application will run. Having said that, a large number of games are run just fine in Wine. In fact, the most popular game in the United States, being World of Warcraft, runs great in Wine. In fact, there are entire sites dedicated to running World of Warcraft and its various incarnations in Wine in Linux and seeing how it works. So once we install Wine, and in this case, again, since Wine is a very large install, it's about 500 megabytes in size to download and install. I've already installed it for us, but if we did a sudo apt-get install Wine, it would pull down and install everything that we need. And if we go to our launch bar, we can configure Wine. Configuring Wine means we're going to add applications, drives, etc. We have an opportunity here to add different libraries, graphics settings, desktop integrations, etc. These are all very advanced topics. The default setting is going to be your most likely candidate for getting most applications to work out of the package. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an application as if it were running in Windows XP, Vista, 2008, 7. In our case, let's go ahead and run application in Windows 7. In order to get something installed, we've set up the Wine to contain a Windows 7 emulated bucket. So if we execute Wine by itself, it will tell you the parameters that it's expecting: help, version, and then a program with command line arguments. In this case, we're going to change to our downloads directory. We're going to look for the executable itself, and we're going to run Wine and then Firefox. And it will attempt to run the executable. And one of the reasons that I like to run it rather than add a run prompt in Unity, I like to run at the command line, because you get to see how any errors or commentary from the developers during the install that might be generated. And it'll also give you a better indication of how likely it is that your application installation is going to succeed. We're going to go ahead and try to install the Windows version of Firefox right now. Now the install completed with very few errors, and in fact they seem to be mostly commentary. And Firefox is notorious for being as self-contained as possible in terms of a browser. So we're going to set it up. We're not going to import anything. And voila! Firefox, the Windows version of Firefox, is up and running. Now if we compare and contrast that to the version of Firefox that we have running natively, they look pretty similar. There's some UI differences here. This is the Windows UI that's installed with the Firefox version for Windows versus the Linux version that has the GTK or Unity icons that are installed. But it appears to work just fine, including Flash support. Now keep in mind that although Wine is not an emulator, it really is an emulator in terms of the underlying operating system DLLs. So we are running a virtual machine, running an operating system, running a Windows emulator, running a browser, a Windows browser with full video support. We'll go ahead and close Firefox. And we'll see that we've shut down Firefox. So you can run Windows applications. You can sit and all I did was go to the Firefox site, Mozilla, and downloaded the Windows version of Firefox. There are other applications that you can try once you've installed Wine, and then you can run them on your Linux desktop natively. Your mileage may vary in terms of stability and the ability to even get them installed. If you go to winehq.org, which is where Wine is at, and you go over here to the AppDB, you'll be able to browse applications and how they run. You'll be able to search applications. So in the case of World of Warcraft, for example, World of Warcraft and its various versions, since version 4.3 up to Siege of Orgrimmar, has Platinum support. And Platinum support means that installation works correctly, updating works correctly, networking works correctly, there are no show-stopping visual artifacts related to World of Warcraft, and that it runs without causing errors. So you'll be able to get that information at winehq.org at the AppDB tab. So that's one way to run Windows applications on your Linux desktop. My name is Terry for Linux Academy, brought to you by Pinehead TV.